Most people in the developed nations walk just a few feet to a clean water source. They seek in their home, but in many places of the world, the water is not nearby nor it's safe or reliable. This was the case in the village of Nabulagala-uganda in Uganda until recently. Nabulagala is a neighborhood in Rubaga Division, Kampala capital city, central Uganda. It's situated nearby to the neighborhood Munaku and the village Bulange Bay. We're gonna be looking at what safe and reliable water means to these people. Nabulagala, around 8 households were using spring water as a water source. The pipes broke down and the village no longer had safe water resource. So this increased the health risks. People had to fetch water from ponds or the next village over. Water for people with funding from the Church Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints worked to train the people of Nabulagala to ensure long-term water stability, and the village restored the spring water. A newly formed water committee oversees the operations and makes sure to keep the source free of contamination. This is what safe and reliable water means to these people. When villages do not have water nearby, children and women often have to make long treks to a water source. If you can bring safe, reliable water to the community, now the children and young girls can go to school. Imagine young girls traveling miles in not very populated spaces or in the dark. There is a lot of violence that happens. Having a safe place where they could go get water makes such a huge difference in their lives. It's something we take for granted. Even when water is safe, there is a risk that it could be contaminated as it gets transported or sorted. Around the world, many women and children are responsible for safely transporting water to their families. Most of the water is got from the springs, so we're gonna be looking at how these springs are formed. We're gonna be looking at the spring water collection system. We all know water is the most vulnerable commodity in the world. No water, no life. Clean, fresh water is even more precious, and a spring is an excellent source. If you have a spring on your property or ground which is persistently wet, the instructable will help you collect that spring water for your house, farm or garden. Spring development and protection. A spring occurs whenever groundwater flows out from the earth's surface. Springs typically occur along hillsides, low-lying areas, or at the base of the slopes. A spring is formed when natural pressure forces groundwater above the land surface. This can occur at the distinct point or over a large seepage area. Springs are sometimes used as water supplies and can be a reliable and relatively inexpensive source of drinking water if they are developed and maintained properly. When considering using a spring as your source of drinking water, it's important to ensure that the rate of flow is reliable during all seasons of the year. Spring flow that fluctuates greatly through the year is an indication that the source is unreliable or may have the potential for contamination. It may be possible to learn about historic spring flow from the previous owner or neighborhood. Water quality is also important to consider before using a spring as water supply. Before developing the spring, collect a sample of water and have it analyzed at the local water testing laboratory to ensure that it can be efficiently and economically treated to make it safe for human consumption. Springs are highly susceptible to contamination since they are fed by shallow groundwater, which usually flows through the ground for only a short period of time and may interact with surface water. For this reason, most springs will need some treatment before the water is considered a safe source of drinking water. Testing will help determine exactly how much treatment will be necessary and may help determine if other sources of water would be more economical. A spring can be developed into a drinking water supply by collecting the discharged water using tile or pipe and running the water into some type of sanitary storage tank. Protecting the spring from surface contamination is essential during all phases of spring development. Springs can be developed into two different ways, and the method you choose will depend on spring typically occurs when groundwater emerges from one defined discharge in the Earth's surface. Concentrated springs are visible and are often found along hillsides where groundwater is forced through openings in the fractured bedrocks. This type of spring is relatively easy to develop. It's usually less contaminated than other types of springs. These are some of the steps you may need while trying to develop a concentrated spring. Excavate the land upslope from the spring discharge until 3 feet of water is flowing. Install a rock bed to form an interception reservoir. Build a collecting wall of concrete or plastic downslope from the spring discharge. Install a pipe law in the collecting wall to direct the water from the interception reservoir to a concrete or plastic spring box. Remove potential sources of contamination and divert surface water away from the spring box or collection area. Some of the concentrated springs emerge in various or lowland areas. A spring that forms in a low area may be very different to safeguard from bacterial contamination, since surface water will tend to flow towards these valleys. For some reasons, it's critical that water collected from the seepage springs. These are locally known as akatebe. These springs occur when shallow groundwater oozes or seeps from the ground over a large area and has not defined discharge point. This type of spring usually occurs when a layer of impervious soil redirects groundwater to the surface. Seepage springs can be difficult to develop. They are also highly susceptible to contamination from surface waters, and they need to be monitored before development to ensure that they will provide a dependable source of water during the entire year. The flow is often lower from seepage springs, making them less dependent. So steps for developing a seepage spring: dig test holes upslope from the seep until you locate the point where the impervious layer is 3 feet underground. Create a trench approximately 18 to 24 inches wide across the slope. Trench should be extended 6 inches into the impervious layer. Installation of the collection wall will help prevent water from escaping the collection tile. This collecting wall should be considered of 4 to 6 inches of concrete. So no matter what type of spring you have developed, it's critical that you remove potential sources of contamination from the spring's drainage area. Surface water draining into the area should be redirected, and all activity should be limited within the drainage area. If livestock are present, fences should be used to keep animals such as the cows, pigs, goats from contaminating the drinking water supply. Once the spring is developed and nearby sources of contamination are eliminated, it's important to disinfect the entire water system and then submit a water sample to a state or certified water testing laboratory for water quality analysis. One of the problems you'll encounter in digging a wet seep is that it's wet, very wet. The ground is saturated with water and you may not be able to use excavation equipment. Hand digging in the mud is the resultant task if the ground is too soft. It can be a bit like shoveling dry sand. Throw one scoop out of the two, slide in. Determination and persistence are required. However, the reward is discovering new springs in your seep and watching the water flow increase. Your experience will vary depending on your soil type and how much water is present. If your soil has more clay in it, then you'll have fewer problems as your soil is more stable. Presidents conveyed their heartfelt gratitude and great appreciation to the sponsors for this goodwill gesture. The springs will go a long way in promoting good hygiene and sanitation and reduce waterborne diseases, especially among children. A water use committee has been formed to ensure the spring is well maintained and will continue to provide them with clean and safe water for years to come. A million thanks to all the sponsors and best wishes. Now that we've gone through all the steps in making a spring, you can go ahead and give it a try. Don't forget to share, like, leave a comment in the comment section. Big up on yourselves to those that always watch my latest uploads. Don't forget to click on the notification button Well, that's what we had for today. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Until next time, bye now.
64, 65, 66, 67,
So, select the
69, 70. Hey, olaba kaneno. Gano gega singo kuchafwa. Olaba kaneno ibudde. Nagumekano gonna machafu.
Bano bakujjako ettaka.
Machafu.
Mulabye kino.
Negano machafu. Kaneno go gayina ekintu ekibuddemu oba kiki.